The South African Council of Churches has organized a mass prayer ahead of elections. SACC President Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, the Archbishop of Cape Town, is currently leading those proceedings. And attendees include national leaders of the IEC, SAPS and SANEF. The SACC wants to bring together all stakeholders of the electoral process, as well as key leaders of society, to seek divine guidance for a safe, peaceful, as well as ethical election. Political parties and independent candidates have also been invited. And now it is taking place at the Grace Bible Church here in Soweto. And our reporter Natasha Phiri is there and she joins us now for an update. Natasha, a very good afternoon to you. How has the ACC mass prayer, how is it going now? And how is the turnout from those expected multi-stakeholders?
Thank you so much, Alicia. It's quite ironic that as you just, started your introduction, proceedings behind me have actually started. And like you've correctly said, this is a National Day of Prayer, quite an important and auspicious occasion, not only just for, the religious faith or sector, but of course for various political party heads and as well the IEC that will ensure that in 24 days' time, they take the country to, the national and provincial elections, where for the first time, we see independent candidates vie for seats, in the National Assembly. We've seen various political parties and independents intensify their political campaign. And of course, today, the South African Council of Churches is actually holding this special prayer. But joining me now is the General Secretary of the SACC, Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana. Bishop, thank you so much for having us. And I mean, this is quite an auspicious occasion, a very important one, because you're praying for the elections. And this comes at a time where a lot of questions have been raised about the integrity of the IEC. As the church, what do you have to say?
I think the first thing to recognize is that the elections are on the 29th, but on the 30th of May, we will still have a South Africa. And all of us will know then which party has been elected to lead the country. And I think that the purpose of this prayer is to ensure that everybody, just chill. Recognize that this is a regular democratic process like any other. Yes, it is different in that you got many more parties this time and you got independent candidates, and that then brings a special dimension to it. But and of course, even for the IEC, it's new waters that have not been charted before, and so everybody is learning as they go. But this does not mean that a country that has run elections successively, successively over 6 times, today suddenly things are so fallen apart. That's really just a hype that political parties are building. But I think that it is precisely for that reason that society become very tense, and we are trying to say through this prayer, please calm down, calm down, calm down. Remember that in every race there is always going to be a winner and a loser, and those who win must win magnanimously, and those who lose must lose graciously. And therefore, as a follower of one party or the other, just understand that it does not mean because your party tells everybody that they're going to win, it actually will happen. And so it's important, and because whenever that doesn't happen, then people you get all these protests, and there are legal systems in this country, in our constitution, that allow, if you are dissatisfied with the results, you've got recourse. So people must just come down and stay within the law. And that's why we have invited here the political parties and independent candidates that are going to participate, so that we can pray with and for them. We have invited the police commissioner and his deputies to come here so that we can pray for them, because they've got a very important role to play in sustaining that peace. But then also we have invited the Independent Electoral Commission, which you talked about at the beginning. They also need our prayers so that there is the transparency and the trustworthiness of the system is something that they make sure that they deliver on. And we have invited churches to be here because they are the people whose job is to pray. So we're all here because we think it's important that as we pray for the nation, we're praying for voters, that they should come out in their numbers and vote, and again, not be intimidated and not be frightened and not have any anxieties, but just have this kind of leisurely, regular act of, you know what, in my family, when one of our children gets to, or grandchildren comes to a voting age, it's a major celebration. All of us go, and my grandchildren know your vote is your secret. And all what we're doing is we take them along to go and make this an event that we celebrate, because we think that it's important for them to learn that participation in the democratic process is not only a democratic duty, a citizen's duty, but it's a sacred duty. Because you are saying, ultimately, the Bible tells us that those who are elected to serve are actually anointed and asked by God to do so. If that is the case, it means every voter who participates is participating in a sacred ministry themselves. And we need to take this very seriously in a very somber way.
Bishop, I know you have to go back inside. Just a quick one. You've also called on political parties to refrain from using churches as canvassing platforms. But you yourself know that a lot of political formations were actually formed inside the church. And, you know, not only leading up to elections, we've heard political parties, or rather the church itself, saying that political parties mustn't distance themselves from the church.
Well, show me one church that invites every political party to go and preach to their congregation. It's not true. It does mean that if I invite political party A, I'm already showing preference for that party over others. And it takes away the kind of impartial, non-partisan role that we ought to be playing as churches. And we think that we must recognize that our congregations are members of all these diverse political parties. Why must your political party be given preference in my church where I believe in his political party? Is what I'm talking about. So that there again begins the tension even within the church. And so we try to discourage that as much as possible. This does not mean that members of churches are not politically conscious and active, precisely because they are, but they are differently so. And because they are differently so, we need to respect that. That's really where we're coming from. And we're saying that we are going to be observers of elections. We're going to be able to pronounce on the transparency of the processes. How do you do that if you've already been showing your sign or in favor of one party or the other? That's why we say, please, as much as possible, let's stay non-partisan, let's be a neutral player in this, and just pray for everybody and support them. And that's why we invited all the political parties to be here. We shouldn't choose one or the other. We invited all of them, and the independent candidates who are coming in for the first time, we're praying for them too, so that their mark can be heard.
Bishop, thank you so much for your time. Let me relieve you as the program has started inside. Of course, that was the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, Bishop Malusi Mpumlwane. As you've heard him say, Alicia, that this prayer service is not only to pray for the Independent Electoral Commission, but of course to pray for the 70 political parties and 11 independent candidates that will be taking place in the polls come the 29th of May, which is just 24 days away. And of course, most importantly, Alicia, the 24.7 million registered voters that are on the voters' roll, and the overriding message that they must come out in their numbers to actually vote. Of course, we will be joining the prayer service inside and witness what will happen as different denominations of different churches come together, all for one common purpose, to pray for the all-important May 29 elections.